Chris Landry, I am so glad to hear your voice today. I hope you're doing well.
Doing well, Ryan. Good to be with you as always, man.
All right. No doubt. Anything you take from Tua Tagovailoa talking about he's so uncertain about the decision, he's very unsure of exactly what he'll do, and I thought it was pretty much an automatic that he'd be entering the NFL, but after hearing the interview and listening to the conversation, maybe it's not as automatic.
Well, yeah, I don't know what he's going to do. I still suspect that he'll probably come out. I think it's extremely risky in his case to come back.
Okay.
The issue with him is from a durability standpoint. I worry about him from that standpoint prior to the hip injury. So if he comes back, for example, we know the injury is going to cost him a lot of money in this draft. The real money is on your second contract. So if you're looking at it strictly from what's best for Tua, the best thing for him, in my opinion now, and I'm someone that loves kids. I wish that all the kids had to stay 4 years in college. It's easier for me as a scout, and I just love that they're able to stay in college longer. But let's just be real and talk about what's best for the kid for a moment. And it would be great for college football and for Alabama if he came back. I get all that. But if he comes out, wherever he gets drafted, and certainly it's not as high as he would have likely, and we'll see where he goes, but probably some money that's lost from where he would have been drafted to where he's going to get drafted. But still, that money can be made up with a second contract if he's healthy, performs, and all those things are to be determined. If he comes back after 2 years in a row of being injured and he has another injury, totally unrelated to this or related to it, it's going to be virtually impossible for him to, you talk about really hurting his stock and really limiting his ability to get this second contract. In essence, the clock is ticking for him to get to that second contract, and you delay it one more year by going into college and putting that risk where you're not getting paid. That's an awful risk. Now, look, if he's happy doing that and he wants to do that, look, God bless him. I'm happy for him. I just would worry that that would be an enormous risk and not one that I would advise for the young man, because there is so much to be lost and, quite frankly, not enough to be gained. So you play well and you're healthy and you get the number one pick. Yeah, but you're 1 year. You're still going to get paid very well off this year, and you're 1 year closer to your second contract, which is the most important thing you must understand. Ever since we had the new CBA, that's changed. The last Sam Bradford was the last, multi-million-dollar bonus pay. The CBA, the new CBA changed that. The money slotted, and the big money's going to be in the second contract. So, look, I would not want to get your hopes or anybody's hopes that he's coming back. If he does, man, that's great. I don't have any inside information or intel. I haven't talked to Nick or certainly not talked to Tua and his family about it. No, nothing like that. And if he wants to, and certainly you can get an insurance policy, which he doesn't have at this point. Those insurance policies are a pittance compared to what you can get in your real contract. So that's my feeling on it, what's best for him. If that young man wants to come back and, be thrilled for him and for the program, but I'm going to be honest and telling you that I'm going to be crossing my fingers and saying extra prayers that in his loyalty to do that I hope that he's not ruining his future. Because, we're talking generational money that he can make on the second contract. And you get injured again, you may never see that. Now, you want to talk tragic in a football sense, that would, in my mind, would be tragic, because I think this kid's got a great future. And I would hate for all that he's meant, and I think probably even the most ardent Alabama fans that would love to see him back, would be, you think that they're sick now? What have you heard and said that everybody's sick for the kid? Could you imagine if something bad happens to him next year and how much worse it would be? And that might really put an end to his future earning potential. I don't think anybody wants that. Even the most ardent fan that just says, hey, I just want to win. I'm a Alabama fan or whatever. I can tell you, I'm not one that's going to BS you and tell you something. If the kid asked me, I'd say your best bet is to come out. And I could be wrong. I'm not going to speak for him. But if they sit down and talk, I would be willing to guarantee you that's the same advice Nick Saban would give him. As much as he'd love to have him, he will, and I know it for a fact, he will, as much as a team guy, as much as he wants to win, he will do right by his players. He has told kids that thought about coming back, you should come out because it's the best thing for you. Love to have you. I think that's the right thing to do, Ryan. So okay. I don't know what he's going to do, and I'm going to be happy for him if he's happy and his family happy coming back. But if he was my brother, if you called me and it was you, Ryan, that's what I would tell you. I certainly can't come on and be a hypocrite and say something different. As much as I'd love to see him playing college football longer, I just don't think that's a prudent thing in his situation. And every situation's different. This one, to me, is too risky in my mind.
I'm gonna read you just one simple quote, and then you kind of, because I think Tua answers this to Kirk Herbstreit. He said, "But let's say I'm just picking a number that I go to the 31st pick. That maybe because he said 12 weeks before he ever takes off the crutches. It's 12 weeks
Correct.
before he ever drops the crutches. Okay, so we're talking about preparing for pro day. So he says, maybe I go to the 31st pick. He said that would be about $9 million difference. That's a lot of money. He said amount of money that I've never had before, but it's not a high first round money. And he said you can never make that money up. He said everybody tells me that they say that you can make it up on your next contract, but he said that's money lost to me that I can never be able to recover. Any thoughts?
Correct. Which is all the more reason that if he comes back and gets injured, he's not going to even see that. He's not going to even see 31st pick in the draft money. You see where I'm going with it?
Yeah, I do very much.
I get it. He's, so let's just, because there's no way to know. Let's just say he would have been the first pick, and now he was going to be the 33rd pick or 31st pick, whatever. 31st, 32nd is a good number because if you're going to take him at the top of the second round, you better off taking him at the bottom of the first because you get an extra year on the contract. All right, yeah, that's about 9, actually probably more, about $10 million. But to come back and to run the risk to where you're not even drafted or maybe not even drafted to later rounds, where you've just let all that money on the table, because at least you will still make millions, and then you on your second contract, if you're able to get to that, and that's not a given, you at least started your clock. In other words, what you're doing is you're gambling. I'm going to come back, play in school, and prove that I can be healthy. That's all great if that works out. But what if it doesn't work out?
Sure.
Then there's a disaster scenario. So it is absolutely correct. You and I talked about this, actually text off the air about that. Yeah, there is great. It would be great. He came back. He was the number 1 pick in the draft, won the Heisman, and he did all that. That would be great. In a perfect world, if you could write the script, I'm all in for that. But who's going to look him in the eye if you recommend that when he has another injury, maybe just as bad next year, and you have to look in and say, oh, well, it's too bad. You realize, that's where I'm looking at it. And I'm a guy that 99 times out of 100 says, boy, I think you could come back and help yourself, and all would think it's good coming back. In this case, where the durability is such an issue, boy, you better get into where you're getting paid money next year, because if he gets paid, next year he probably doesn't play. He's in a backup role behind a veteran. He's making money. He's learning the pro game. He's getting a second, third contract. He will get likely a good contract because he's not going to take the beating. And, he may end up playing and starting. And if he does get injured, at least he's got that contract, be it 31st overall pick money, wherever it ends up, 50th pick money, whatever. He's still got a good chunk of change that it can go on, and if he, God forbid, can't play football again, now he's got a good start to life that most people will not have. So he's at least has got that. He's even risking that by coming back physically. So that's my concern. And look, you can't play this game with the idea that you're afraid of getting hurt. But you also can't be foolish either. And if you just kind of – I don't know, Ryan. I mean, you can get in a car and get in an accident every day, and that's a risk we take. But, if you speed and you run red lights and stop signs, you increase the chances of you getting injured or injuring someone else. I think this would be a really risky move for the young man, which I would be really nervous for him if he did. I would be thrilled if he did it and it worked out. But, man, I would be devastated if I was asked and I told him you should come back and that happened, I'm going to be honest with you, that's something I'd have a hard time, looking myself in the mirror. I got to be honest and say that, to me, in his situation, is too risky, at least in my mind. So, look, I mean, if that's what he wants to do, man, that's great. It's great for Alabama, and if he's happy with it, that's fine. Maybe the money's not that important. I mean, all those things, great. I'm just answering the question from a pure standpoint of risk-reward. Man, the risk there is not worth the reward, because you look at it and say, all right, well, he comes back, he can make more money next year by being the number one pick. If he is the number one pick and everything goes well, yes, but he's still into the second year of a pro contract. Next year, take the money he would make next year, wherever he was drafted, and compare that what he's going to be making as a student at Alabama. Even if they were to accelerate these likeness rules and he would be able to get some money, it would still be, you got to look at that too. You got to figure that that's a year of not getting an income versus maybe the 31st overall pick income if we're going to use that scenario. But if you look at that and you're one step closer to the next contract, look, I mean, that you've got to look at all of that. And obviously it's his decision, and man, Godspeed to whatever he makes that's happy for him and his family. But that's kind of my view of it, that the risk is not worth it. And I think the rewards on the end wouldn't be as rewarding as people might think when you look at the fact that he's going to be making a significant amount of money next year, regardless where he's drafted, and he's one step closer to maybe getting that second contract, which is huge. And coming back next year, no guarantee that you're going to be in better position. That's kind of how I view it, and we'll see where it goes. And hopefully that he's got clear mind in view of it as he looks forward.
Chris, today I could keep you on for 2 hours. I'm not sure I'd have enough time to pick your brain about everything that we want to know. Let's take you back to the Iron Bowl for a couple of minutes. Alabama allowed an offense it's not very good to have a lot of success, and I know that a couple of those were pick sixes. I'm kind of eliminating that. I mean, they were able to put a lot of points up on Alabama. What went wrong defensively for the Tide?
Oh, man, it's what's going wrong for the defense for a good part of the year. Shocked that both offenses were able to have that much success against the defenses. I agree with you. I didn't think Auburn's offense would be able to do that. That's a compliment to them, but certainly a look at Alabama's defense. And as you mentioned, not all those points were on the defense. Defense hadn't played well at all, and taken a big step back. And, look, they've got to address some significant issues. The health is what it is. They've got to continue to kind of grow in that part of it, and probably are looking at taking a complete evaluation of their coaching staff again, which goes into some continuity issues. But before you have continuity, you got to have people in the right position. Do they have all of that set up? I think got a real big question mark there on defense. But really shocked that they were able to score as many points offensively against that Auburn defense. Completely fooled me as to how that game would play out. The fact that Auburn won didn't surprise me. The fact that it was 48-45 shocked me. I did not see that type of game. And while it was exciting, it was mistake-prone, and probably as much as the defensive issues as just the mistakes that Alabama made. And, everyone will say, well, we they didn't beat us, we lost. More games are lost. The reason why teams are great, are good versus great, is that they don't make dumb mistakes. They had to have a lot of penalties. Alabama wasn't a very smart team on Saturday. I mean, they're explosive. They scored a lot of points. Made a lot of dumb mistakes, uncharacteristic, but they're becoming more and more of a part of it. And I think it's going to be the most interesting offseason yet, because we heard and we talked, and I said, and I quite frankly think I was inaccurate in that I thought they would look a little different this year on how they played. And we talked about getting back to Bama football. What I saw this year wasn't what I considered Bama football in the way they normally play it. Now, I do understand their receivers. And, by the way, if we throw in the Tua thing, how many of those receivers are going to be back? Well, that's maybe a conversation for another day. That's interesting, too. But, I keep wondering how much different it might look. Maybe will be a more of a line of scrimmage team. May emphasize the running game more. This year they still emphasize, and I understand why, the passing game with their receivers, and they're explosive. And who knows, in a shootout game, they could have beaten anybody. But quite frankly, they've looked more like Oklahoma of recent years, that can outscore people but can't stop people. That's what Alabama has become. And quite frankly, that's the reason why they were not competitive in the championship game last year and why they're not making the playoffs this year. And I know it's, the reasons for it, the injuries and all that, I get it. That's part of it. Maybe it will look differently, but that defense needs to be shored up, and they need to become a little deeper and a little stronger and a more run-focused team, at least in my mind, if they're going to get back to the championship level that they used to be, a couple of years ago and beyond.
We're talking to Chris Landry, LandryFootball.com. What'd you see from Mac Jones?
Listen, I was really impressed with what Mac did. I mean, again, you can't score that many points. I just did not think they'd score that many points.
Neither did we.
If you'd have told me that the Alabama was going to score 48 points, I wouldn't have laughed at you. I would have said, good Lord, I sure don't see that. And if you told me that, they were going to score 45 points, and then they were going to lose, then I would have laughed at you and said, how are you going to score 45 points and lose? Are you kidding me? There's no way Auburn's going to score 45 points in this game. That game, I had to look at it twice on tape. Because watching it in person, I was a little bit in awe of what I was seeing, and not all in awe of a good way. I like what Mac did. Look, mistakes were there. There were some mix-ups, and certainly there was general mistakes on the pick sixes. The negative plays are killers. It's often about the plays you don't make that you have to make at the quarterback position more than the plays you do make. But the plays that he did make showed that the kid has got confidence. He can lead the team. And with playmakers around him, it can be really good. Look, I will say this. If this is the direction that it goes next year, with an offensive line to Alabama standards, and with more than just a couple of backs, but 2-3 guys that they will work in the rotation and obviously have the feature back and get to more of the physical play. They'll have good receivers. Recruiting is going well. It's the class is outstanding. I've looked at a lot of tape, and on LandryFootball.com, we cover a lot of recruiting and the breakdowns of all the prospects of players. I love what they got coming in, and I like some of the things they haven't coming back. They're going to lose some key guys, but with an improvement on defense, better at the line of scrimmage, and with this young quarterback making plays and leading, I think he can be, in terms of ability-wise, a cut above, what they had in, the McCarrons of the world. I think he's there. Tua, no, it's going to look different. But you know what? It may not be a bad thing, because for all the success Tua and this offense had, and as much excitement as we had, we know the kid won him a title coming in the second half, big part of it. But, they in my mind, in some ways have lost their identity a little bit as a physical team. And that happens when you become more spread them out. It affects how you practice, the tempo in practice, and it affects the amount of snaps you're on the field defensively. You heard me preach on that time and time again, probably sick of hearing me saying it. But I don't know that moving on from more ball control but yet still being able to feature the passing game when you need to, I'm not so sure that that's not the best approach going forward. That has nothing to do with whether, Tua should or shouldn't come back. That's his decision, as we discussed. But I don't think the doom and gloom is much as it should be. Look, I've been asked this a bunch. Is it over? And I always say, you never really know when it's over. You only know it's over, like the dynasty and whether the run is over. But you never know until it's over, and you look back and you say, yeah, you remember in such and such a time. Yeah, that's when you never really know. All we know is the expectation is Alabama's not going to be in the playoffs. That's never happened before. So it's easy to jump on it. The recruiting is going very well. That hasn't slipped. Nick has not been able to find the right mix of assistants. That hasn't gone well. And ironically, I'll share this with you. Do you have time, or you running out of time?
No. Listen, I got plenty of time.
Okay. So it was not last year at this time. I was doing some work with Jimmy Lake, trying to convince him to come to Alabama. That's who Nick wanted to bring as his coordinator. And I'm bringing this up out of the blue, and I apologize, but I think it's apropos. And, because I thought it would be really good, you could be a head coach, and I think the experience would be great for you. And, I think obviously they told him, if you stay here, you're probably going to get your chance here a lot sooner than you think. And, of course, Chris Peterson, retired. And I know Chris Peterson really well, and I'm happy for Jimmy, and it all worked out. But I'm thinking about this week because it made me think, maybe that's why he didn't want to come. He had something there, why move and come to Alabama and spend a couple of years when a year from now you got a type of job that you want to have at a place like Washington. So my point is I think he's missed on some guys that he wanted to bring in on his staff. I think that lack of continuity is hurt. It's hurt more on the field and development because I tell you the recruiting's still going pretty well. So listen, I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to be really fine. And look, I can't promise that the championships are going to start coming again. Nick's not only on the back nine of his career, he's on the final stretch of the back nine. But there's still some good football left, and I think we all thought this year was going to be a year in which I did anyway, that they would kind of rebound and show people. And it hadn't worked. So it's understandable to say, boy, not only did it not work, it didn't even go as far as it did last year. But I wouldn't count it out yet. It has to happen like a couple of more years for me to say, you know what, it really doesn't look the same. And I start to see the recruiting drop off a good bit. That's where I think I would say, you know what, Ryan, I don't think it's going to happen. I think that there's a good future here. I really do. I wouldn't. I know it's frustrating probably for the fan base because they're spoiled. They have expectations that are higher than anybody. Right now, they're just not that good.
Chris,
and to be honest with you, they just weren't good enough to do what they needed to do this year. But I don't think that means they can't do it coming up.
Chris, final question. You think Pete Golding will remain as defensive coordinator? I mean, I know it's just that's a curveball.
I doubt it. Honestly, I doubt it. I don't know, but I would.
Just your opinion. I mean, that's. I mean,
I would doubt it. I mean, and I don't. He has a lot of regard for him, and I think it's not all his fault by any stretch. But let me say this: it is dependent upon getting maybe somebody that he wants, and there's some people out there. The fits, and whether he's able to get them. I just told you the story about he wouldn't have been the coordinator this year, not because they didn't like him, but because he had somebody else in mind. So if he's not able to get maybe somebody else, maybe he will be back. I don't know that. But right now, I would say that when things are not working, Nick usually knows how to fix it and will attempt to fix it. May not always work, but I don't see him standing pat unless he doesn't have a better option, and I suspect that he probably will.
You know, if you go to that sock drawer or that T-shirt in the closet or that pair of polo pants or whatever you're looking for, that Christmas gift item, dads have always got too many socks and too many shirts, but they never have enough of the great inside information. And if you look at Chris Landry, LandryFootball.com, if you're looking for that unique gift idea for that football fanatic in your life, give that gift of Christmas that can last the entire year at LandryFootball.com. Go and check out the website. Take a look. And we hear the 25 minutes that Chris provides here on this program. We were all excited to talk with Chris and allow us to kind of pick his brain a little bit, learn more about gaining that exclusive access that a lot of those teams already know. It's LandryFootball.com. If you've got a football fanatic in your life, or maybe you're a football fanatic, you can find a way to give a gift to yourself. It's all available there, LandryFootball.com. And you'd be a very popular stocking stuffer or maybe just a Christmas gift idea there. Chris, tell us more about the incredible website.
Well, and now obviously as Alabama's not going into the playoffs, for the Bama fans, may be looking a little bit quicker towards the recruiting class than ever. I've looked at, like I said, tons of tape, been working a lot. We're going to be breaking out that. So you'll get an evaluation of every prospect that Alabama has committed, will eventually sign in December, as well as the other programs. So you get a good view of that, and you get a jump start on that. As I start to break that out, as we kind of put the season to bed this next week, obviously breaking down all the bowl matchups as well. So that's something to look forward to that probably Bama fans are not maybe thinking about as much usually this time of year. So check that out, all the NFL stuff as well, all the college stuff, free agency, the draft, as I mentioned, recruiting, coaching searches, working on stuff right now, and what's going on at Arkansas and Missouri and Ole Miss, and Florida State should have their deals set up by this weekend, by the end of the weekend. So we've got all that covered and keeping you update with a lot of inside information and a lot of film room analysis. So check it out. Follow me on Twitter at Landry Football, and check out LandryFootball.com. As you mentioned, a great Christmas gift for yourself or a loved one that's a football fan in your family.
It is Chris Landry. It's LandryFootball.com. Chris, have an awesome week and a weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Take care.